Let me introduce your expert panel to you. Gentlemen, because you are intelligent people, you will see that there are names and you can work out where you ought to go. So in no particular order other than this is the order I had it written down. We'll start with René Droese, who's Chief Development Officer at Budapest Airport. René. And I've just realised that this really is a dance and I have to logistic-guise my way out of it to make room. Next we have Ádám Meszaros, County Managing Director at DHL Express Hungary. Welcome, Adam, and thank you for joining us. Thirdly, we have Thoralf Wagner, Chief Executive Officer at Lufthansa Technik Budapest Ltd. And last but by no means least, although it does give me a little bit of juggling to do later on, we have another Ádám, Ádám Tálosi, who's Head of Legal Affairs and a board member at the East-West Intermodal Logistics. Thank you. Gentlemen, welcome all. Thank you for joining us. You're all of you representative of certain aspects of the business. So I hope that what we can do by the end of this this presentation, this discussion, is touch where we are now, what's changed, and what might be changing in the future. Now, I had everything planned out because that's what you do with an event like this. But then life happened. But I am at heart a newspaper man, and if you have some news, you should share it. So I'm going to rip up my original plan and invite René to share with us some news that Budapest Airport has had over the last 24 hours. René.
Yeah, first of all, good morning and thank you very much for the invitation for today's session. I'm really delighted to be here on the panel and to share the latest news about Budapest Airport. And to answer your question about the last 24 hours, yes, Budapest Airport was named as the best airport in Europe yesterday by ACI. ACI is the International Organization of Airports across the world. It was an independent interview made across all the passengers at the airports. So we are number one in the category between 15 to 25 million passengers, which is... Thank you very much. We are really proud about this because this is really a testimonial and I mean, we will touch this later as well. I mean, you know, we were really under fire, under attack also by the government years ago. I still remember weekly press conferences by Gergely Gulyás and attacking Budapest Airport, telling how bad is the service at Budapest Airport and queuing times and things like this. So therefore, this is now really a fantastic result and we're quite happy about this.
Thank you, René, and congratulations. René and I actually know each other from years back. This is not the first logistics roundtable that we've sat on, but as I said to you this morning, it's nice to see an old face, and it's very nice to hear your news. Congratulations. I assume, because you are all intelligent people, that you are aware of Budapest Airport and you are aware of DHL. You may be less aware of our other two panelists, so I thought, getting back to my original plan, that we would start by giving our other two panelists a chance to introduce their business and where they sit within the logistics chain. I'm going to start with Thoralf, because I think, Thoralf, you introduce yourself and you say Lufthansa Technik Budapest Ltd, but people stop listening after Lufthansa. And they make assumptions about what you are and what you do. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit about what you are, where you're based, where you are in the country, because I believe you're not just at Budapest, despite the name, and what it is that you do here.
Yeah, you're completely right. That's what's normally happening. So you're starting with Lufthansa and then, yeah, my ticket, and last time and that. So yes, maybe just a little bit introduction to myself and to the, as you said, to the business. So Lufthansa Technik is one of the service part of the Lufthansa Group. You all know the Lufthansa Group with flying, and you know that Lufthansa Group is also widely spread in the airlines. So just to give you the remark, also Lufthansa is not only Lufthansa, also Swiss, Brussels, Austrian, Eurowings are belonging to the group. Some other small airlines also belonging to the group. But there are also important service units. And one of the biggest service units is the Lufthansa Technik Group, itself a group around 24,000 employees worldwide, headquartered in Germany in Hamburg. But at the moment, more employees are working international than in Germany. And one of the bases here is also in Budapest. What are we doing here in Budapest is the so-called aircraft base maintenance. It means that an aircraft has similar, like a car, there you are having inspections which are regularly planned, and there are inspections, or not inspections, repairs which are just happening. So in the morning when you're coming to your car, it's not starting again, then you need a mechanic, or you bring your car on a yearly annual check to a repair shop, and that's what we are doing here. And not only here, so the business is based in Europe, in Budapest, in Sofia, and in Malta. There we are having these big inspection jobs for aircrafts. And internationally, we are having factories in Puerto Rico and in the Philippines. And we are having a big joint venture in China, in Beijing, where we are doing it. But the business is always similar, the same. The aircraft is coming, the aircraft is ripped off completely, everything is checked, and in the end, it's built together again. And when you just hear about ripping off the aircraft, it means an aircraft is a little bit different structured than in car, because due to the high value of the parts, many of the parts of aircrafts are repaired. So means they are sent out to a workshop somewhere, which is specialized in that part, and it's sent back to us in the end, and we reinstall the part. Normally, we are not reinstalling the same part. Normally, we are exchanging the part, and then we are so-called pooling it. And that's where all the logistics starts in the end. So therefore, we are having big repair cycles worldwide where we are really back and forth sending these spare parts. And you can imagine that's all under pressure happening in the end because due to the value of these parts, for us, speed is really important, because often it's the case that the capital costs are higher than the logistics costs. So therefore, the Lufthansa Technik Group is more or less relying mainly on air cargo in the end. Which is, for an industry company, quite seldom. Normally, you are having also a lot of sea freight involved. That's what we are not having at the moment. Yeah, a little bit for myself, the background. I'm here in Budapest, still quite new. So one and a half year, I took over the CEO position here for the facility, what we are having here. But my heart is also a little bit for logistics, because my last position, which I had 5 years in Hamburg, was the procurement of the whole logistics for the whole group. So meaning that, so I'm deeply involved also in the, for an example, buying or procuring the integrators. So Ádám and myself, we had often some fun and discussed about rates and something, and why we are not a local contact, for an example. And so therefore, I'm also having a little bit clue about the logistics market in total.
Thank you, Thoralf. So basically, you do MOTs for planes. And we hope at the end of that there isn't an IKEA moment where you've got a nut and bolt left over. I've actually seen, if you get the chance to go and see the facilities at Budapest Airport, they are amazing. I was lucky enough to go out there at the start of COVID when it became a car park, and it was an amazing sight. So you should probably arrange that beforehand. They probably don't like civilians just turning up and looking at the aircraft. But if you get the chance, go. Our last panelist, or the last to join the panel, it was actually very important for us because it gave us a chance to complete the circle with logistics tights, in that we had air covered, we have road covered, we didn't have rail covered, but we do now. Ádám Tálosi, perhaps you're tell us a little bit about your operation, which is relatively new, so there may be people in the room who aren't aware of it. Just to fill you in, it's an intermodal unit up in northeast Hungary, quite close to the borders with Ukraine and Slovakia. And you do both rail and road, but I believe most of what you do is rail. So Ádám, please tell us a little bit about what you are, how you got to be there, because it is relatively new, and what the aim for the future is.
Thank you very much. Greetings to everyone. My name is Ádám Tálosi. Regarding my background a little bit, basically I'm practicing as a lawyer with a limited capacity nowadays, because in the last 10 years I was focusing in parallel to real estate related investments. And one of our, basically the biggest investment is the East-West Intermodal Logistics Plc, which owns the East-West Gate Intermodal Terminal at the Ukrainian border of Hungary. It's like 25 kilometers from the border. A brief summary regarding the conception, where we are, how we are. It is totally a private investment. I'm also a CEO owner of the project. We have started the operation last year. And when we started, we set up a very tight schedule for ourselves. We were able to build the whole project within 1.5 years. It looks like the terminal itself is 85 hectares, which makes it one of the biggest dry port in Europe. And there is a surrounding area which is planned to be developed in the next couple of years, which is further 500 hectares development area, which is technically biggest than the Debrecen Industrial Park. But it's the vision of the future, because there are some circumstances around us, as you know very well, and everybody is affected, especially the logistics service providers at the border crossings of the European Union. So we have started the operation last year from absolutely zero. We have to hire our colleagues. Currently, we are absolutely ready to speed up the process. We have plenty of negotiations. We have like 140 colleagues. The conception looks like that we have the intermodal terminal and one company which owns and operates the terminal itself. We have a second company, which is a rail operator company with every single permit to be able to provide the service within Europe. We have our own locomotives, locomotive drivers, and also railway wagons. We have currently 140 container transportation wagons on the terminal. And we have a third company, which is a private customs agency, which means that together with these three companies, we are able to provide a unique service at the border crossing of the European Union. Regarding the terminal, as I mentioned, it's 85 hectares. It looks like 3 kilometers long and 400 meters wide. We have private 5G system within the area of the terminal, which was developed together with Vodafone and Huawei. This application is quite unique because our intermodal cranes are operated from an office room with simple joysticks by very young gentlemen. Our conception is based on the highest efficiency, and I can tell that our conception, of course, because of the technical abilities, is the fastest currently at the border crossing of Ukraine, especially. Our plan was to focus on the containerized transportation 2-3 years ago. This is why we had many negotiations in China, South Korea, Japan, Russia, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and Ukraine. But last February, there was a dramatic turn of events, as you know very well. And we had to replan, recalculate our development a little bit to not simply focus on the containerized transportation, but also onto bulk cargo transportation. This is why we invested into special vacuuming machines, conveyors. Therefore, we have a very significant daily capacity to be able to transship grain from truck to rail and vice versa. Within the area of the terminal, we have 10-kilometer long rail tracks. In parallel, we have wide gauge rail tracks, which are coming from Ukraine. And narrow gauge rail tracks which are everywhere in Europe. So we can transship the containers from the one to the other. Besides containers and bulk cargo, we are also able to transload liquefied goods with special equipment. And also we are able to transship the trucks and trailers itself onto the rail with a very simple solution. Within the area of the terminal, we have significant container storage capacity. We are able to store a few thousand containers, and also we have built our first warehouse, which is 14,000 quadrat meters. Despite we are able to provide a unique service in one hand, we always emphasize that we are independent service providers, so we are ready to work with anyone in the market, and we are working on it to realize the business. So this is the brief. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. I think we'll go to the other Adam, Ádám Meszaros from DHL. Now, I assume that most people in this room have heard of DHL and therefore don't need to be told what you do. Many of them are perhaps your customers. But it's, perhaps you can give a breakdown as to what part of your business is rail, what part of your business is road, what part of your business is air, and maybe talk a little bit about your relationship with Budapest Airport, because I know that's a very important part of what you do here in Hungary.
Absolutely, and happy to be here today. So if you think about intercontinental logistics globally, then you can think of a triangle, very wide at the bottom, and then getting thinner the more you go to the top. And at the bottom of that pyramid, there is ocean freight. Approximately 90% of the goods worldwide moving via ocean freight. Long transit times and the cheapest rates. Then the next step would be rail, especially China rail being a new development. You get a somewhat better transit time than you get on the ocean, but it also gets a little bit more expensive. As you go higher up, then it comes road freight. It's more of a domestic story. Higher up comes air freight, where you have pretty good transit time. So from China, you take down the ocean freight transit time from 4 to 6 weeks to, say, a week with air freight. And if you go higher up, then comes the express business, the integrators business, which I represent. There you have transit time, say, intercontinental 2 to 3 days, but also the highest rates because we run a closed network with our own assets, and that's the only way we can guarantee the speed and the quality. So to answer your question, composition of our group, we're a 100 billion euro company, and there are 3 major divisions. The first one is our brokerage business, DHL Global Forwarding and DHL Freight, who are represented at the airport, so also tenants of René. Then another 30 billion is the supply chain business, where we run primarily warehouses for our customers. That's not at the airport because it doesn't have to do with transportation. And then the third chunk, 30 billion, is the express business, which I represent, where you have this closed network of high speed and high quality. And even though only a very little percentage of goods move via this express network, in terms of revenues, it still makes up 30% of our group revenue.
Thank you very much. René will, last but not least, we all use your airport. We all think it's the best in Europe and better than 400 other airports. For its size, but specifically today we're talking about logistics. So perhaps you can talk us through one of the things that interests me is when Cargo City, which most people I think here will have heard of, and is logistics hub at the airport, when the idea of developing that as a separate unit came along. And perhaps we can talk about, you're Chief Development Officer, so you're in charge of building things, what the plans are for developing it further, particularly with this logistics view.
Yeah, indeed. The Cargo City project, we started with development of the Cargo City project already to be more precise, in 2007 already. So when we took over the airport from the Hungarian government, you remember, it was a privatization by the Hungarian government. A private company or private consortium took over the airport in 2007. That time when we took over the airport, we realized the facilities at Budapest Airport, especially in terms of cargo, were really outdated and not really fit for purpose. So therefore, we started to design new cargo facilities. But then, unfortunately, we were stopped by the financial crisis, 2008, 2009. Then we wanted to restart this project in 2011, 2012, but we were again stopped by the Malev bankruptcy in 2012. So we had to fight as company, we had to fight for survival. So we lost overnight. I lost overnight a tenant leasing 90,000 square meter, including cargo, including also hangar space, so the subsidiary of Malev. So this was a quite tough, let's say, period. But then finally in 2016, 2017, and it was also our former CEO, Jos Lammers, he is now the CEO of Munich Airport, he pushed me very much. He said, René, now it's time, let's do it. And then we let's say, put the drawings, the design from the drawer, we took them out, and then we started. And then the grand opening was in 2019, and maybe some of you, I don't know, maybe you joined the opening ceremony. It was a great day. So we built 2 facilities, in total 30,000 square meter, warehouses, offices, a big apron. Apron is the concreted area to park an aircraft. Everything was already, with the opening of the facilities, completely leased out, 100%. The cargo volumes went up from 2019, before Corona, from some 100,000 tons up to last year, record number, again a record number, 200,000 tons. Volumes coming mainly from China, e-commerce, very strong, automotive, electronics, pharmaceuticals, flying to Budapest, and airlines, but also shippers, they have realized there's no need to fly any longer to big hubs like Frankfurt or even Vienna or in Western Europe, Amsterdam. Now they can fly to Budapest. They can use the facility at Budapest Airport, because what we provide now at Budapest Airport is really state-of-the-art in terms of loading times, but also being competitive in terms of handling fees, handling charges. So capacity is available, and this is my duty as the Chief Development Officer to provide sufficient capacity for our business. So not only for Thoralf having a huge hangar facility at the airport, and I have to make sure he's satisfied with his hangar. I have to make sure Ádám is satisfied with his warehouse and with, let's say, being very close to the apron, to his aircraft, arriving every morning from Leipzig. You can set your clock, 6 o'clock, the aircraft is coming. And then deloading the aircraft. And in the evening, 8, 9 p.m., the aircraft is going back to Leipzig. So this is really clock-wise working. And again, this is my duty to provide sufficient capacity and to ensure a proper business environment for our business partners. To answer now finally your question, how to continue with cargo. Cargo 1, just said, was fully leased. We decided last year to extend cargo, so it's already under construction. So warehouses, additional apron spaces under construction. Completion is by end of this year. So additional 30 million euros we're going to invest. The first one was 50 million, now we're investing 30 million. Feedback is still fantastic, and I get almost on a daily basis forwarding companies, handling companies knocking on my door, asking for warehouse space on airport, along the runway. So what I'm doing now is to extend cargo, continue with design Cargo City Phase 2. Maybe, again, some 20, 30,000 square meter warehouse I'm going to build along the runway. And I'm very convinced about the demand, volumes coming from abroad, flying to Budapest.
Very quick follow-up, if I may, René. I assume within logistics that being being able to get to the aircraft very quickly to begin unloading is important. Adam, would that be right? You want to get there as soon as possible, yes?
In our segment, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Fine. So, is Budapest unusual in the amount of space it's able to provide, which puts people like DHL right next to their planes? And does that give you a competitive advantage, or is this actually Vienna can do the same, Frankfurt can do the same? Are you able to develop more because you start from a different base?
Absolutely. This is the big benefit, the big advantage of Budapest Airport, the huge land bank. Just to give you a benchmark, so the size of Budapest Airport is 1,600 hectares. It's size-wise exactly the same like London Heathrow. In terms of our runway system, it's a perfect layout. You have 2 runways, 3,000 meters and 3,700 meters long. It's perfect for let's say to accommodate, to welcome each and every aircraft, including the A380 full freighters, certainly 747 freighters. So in this respect, Budapest Airport has again a huge land bank. There's sufficient land available to further develop facilities in terms of cargo, in terms of aircraft maintenance for the aircraft maintenance business, but also for the express business, for the integrators. Space is available, and our investors, so the shareholders of Budapest Airport, they are happy to invest into properties. I mean, what we're doing, we're signing lease agreements with DHL, with Lufthansa Technik, long-term lease agreements. And we do the design, we discuss the design, and then we run the whole planning, and then we do the construction, and then we hand over based on a long-term lease agreement. So therefore, again, that's the big benefit of Budapest Airport, ample of capacity. Certainly, I must do the same not only for cargo and, let's say, logistics. I must do the same also for passengers. You know, Terminal 2, and you know also Terminal 1. And you know, Terminal 1, there was a need to close Terminal 1 after the Maldives collapse in 2012. So this is also my duty to reopen Terminal 1 now.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, when I first arrived in this country in '98, I arrived in Terminal 1. Long before it was renovated, it was not the most uplifting experience, let's say. So I'm always interested in developments there, but that's not really our theme. So perhaps we'll do another roundtable on.
I would love to do this.
To get back to logistics, we've done the sales pitches now. We understand better the businesses that are represented here. An important part of business, of course, is dealing with the circumstances that you are faced with, and you alluded to a whole bunch of problems, from privatization to nationalization to privatization to crashes, Malev. We've had a war right on our doorsteps. We've had COVID, which affected everyone. So we're not crass. We don't want to be developing on the misery of others, but we're all business people, and we know that challenges provide opportunities. So I wonder if we'll go down the line. I wonder if you think the last period, of course, we'll caveat it. We'll say that the situation has been terrible. COVID was terrible. The war is unbelievably bad. We'll accept that as a given. But do you think this last period of upheaval and disruption has actually benefited your businesses? So are you ahead of where you would expect to be? Was there an accelerating fact from having to be agile and nimble and change your plans? Or has it held you back and you're only just beginning to get through? I mean, you went from maintaining aircraft to being a car park attendant, effectively. So are you where you expected to be? Are you ahead of where you expected to be? Or, behind the ball? We'll start with you, Thoralf.
That's a complex question.
I'm paid to ask those.
I think there's a global answer and there's a regional answer. So maybe I start with the regional answer. So for the regional answer for Lufthansa Technik Budapest, we were lucky in the crisis, because of course when the crisis started, we lost more or less the whole business, because all the airlines, as you know, we had were were down, and what are you doing? You immediately do the cost cutting, and therefore you immediately cancel all your maintenance agreements and so on and so on. So we were more or less empty within a minute. But then, luckily, so we lost the main business, but we won, and that's also in the cooperation with Budapest Airport, we won a new horizon, a new existing or a new shining up business in the end. That's the parking of aircrafts. And luckily, we could agree with Budapest Airport that they were also, in the end, you were same suffering than we were suffering. You lost also big part of your business, and then we're saying, what are we doing? There's still the space, huh? And then we developed together a really good thing that we made place for around 40, even in the, I think at the peak we had 50 aircraft from, of course, Lufthansa was one of the main customers, but there were other airlines which needed parking space, and then we run around 50 aircrafts in parking. And the lucky thing is with an aircraft, if you park an aircraft, you cannot just stand there and just wait. You really have to take care for it. Huh? So every week at least you have to do something. Every month you have to run the engines and something like that. That created for us business. Nevertheless, it has not compensated our business completely. So we were not higher than with normal business. But luckily, on the other side, it was in the recovery phase. We are quickly recovering, and we are at the moment also, I would say, fully recovered to an extent that we are completely sold out. So what you see now, that there's a lot of work which was paused and which is coming now to the market again. On the global scale, I think when you look for the Lufthansa Group and the Technics Group, you see we are having nice figures. Last week we announced the annual results and so on and so on. That looks all really good, and it's really good to see that the recovery is so steep. But on the other side, if you look really behind the curtain, overall the company built up also huge debts in that time, which we have to repay over the years. So we should not forget that. So the global answer is still we are recovering, but it was really a big crisis which brought us really to the border. And then I think when we had this other breakfast a week ago, one step ahead there was this big hole. So I would say, yes, we are recovering, but it's not the way that we are better than before, I would say. I think the good thing is, I think we have never been so speedy, so agile in taking decisions. So I think in this crisis time, you could really see how an organization, if really the pressure is really, really high, can decide quickly, also with the unions and so on and so on. So this was really exceptional, and there I think we will profit also from some new structures which have been set. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Thoralf. It's I think if I look, I get to sit down. I'm lucky enough, I'm fortunate enough that I get to sit down with a lot of CEOs, and I think the thing that I hear again and again and again is that the situation did two things. One, it proved that you can work from home, or at least you can work remotely, and there was a lot of suspicion. That's hard in your business because it's very hard to fix an aeroplane from home, granted. But that and also that agility that in a sense the situation was so bad it was quite freeing because you had no option other than to take decisions quickly to survive. So I think it's an interesting development. René, I wonder, one of the things that I think COVID did do is it elevated the importance of logistics in the public mind, because as business people we deal with logistics. It's important to us. The general public, I think, doesn't really think about how the goods get to the shops. But one of the things that I really sort of concentrated my mind was seeing suddenly there's no activity, there's no or very little public activity at Budapest Airport, but there are all these cargo planes coming in. And if we cast our mind back to the days where everyone was scrambling to find simple masks, which now seems ridiculous, but really Budapest Airport became a strategic lifeline. So do you get some feeling that perhaps there's more recognition, public recognition of the work that all of you do as a result of this?
Yes, for sure. I mean, the cargo business is much more, so the cargo business at Budapest Airport is now much more in the spotlight. And this is mainly due to the fact, and as I said, in 2019, we could open Cargo City. It was more or less on time because Corona kicked in 2020. And then suddenly, with a really weird situation at the airport, our terminals, our passenger terminals were almost empty. So usually having 50,000 passengers per day, and peak time Corona maybe 500 passengers per day. So some flights, some airlines still flying, and on the other side, cargo was so busy. We had every day the big freighters, 747 jumbos on our apron, bringing medical equipment from China to Hungary, and from Hungary, it was distributed across the nation, so across Hungary, but also across Central Eastern Europe. So therefore, in this respect, we were quite happy having the facility really on time, and then therefore, again, the messages, the news, the feedbacks was super positive. But again, cargo cannot help us to survive the business. I mean, cargo cannot pay all our bills. We need, it's clear, we need passengers. Passengers is our main revenue stream. So therefore, cargo was fine, was great. We were on time, we could help, we could support. I can't remember how many state secretaries, even Viktor Orban himself was standing on our apron and welcoming a 747 aircraft.
So by that stage, they were being friendly. Do you think, I mean, if you look at the track of goods that you've handled over the years, it's been going up anyway. You were breaking records year by year. And again, you know, we'll take it for granted that COVID was a terrible thing. But did you see an acceleration of growth in cargo during that period?
Yes, because we were so flexible to react and to organize with the authorities, with customs. We had so many, during COVID, we had so many regulations, how to handle an aircraft, how to handle the crew, for example. So a crew, or let's say an aircraft coming from China, there was a regulation, they're not allowed to stay overnight. So, or they can stay maybe either in the aircraft or in a dedicated airport hotel with police standing in front of their door. It was crazy. But this is exactly how we could handle this. And I think this kind of flexibility we have arranged, we have organized, brought Budapest Airport really to the spotlight. And again, the cargo community is very satisfied about our, let's say, agility, how to handle cargo flows. So therefore, and as I said, the cargo volumes, again, last year was a record year. This year, maybe 2023, maybe it will be a bit of flat. We are not entirely sure because we still need to see the numbers. We all know recession, etc., and high inflation rate. But I think a similar number like last year we can achieve. But then afterwards, I believe it will continue to grow.
Thank you, René. So we've parked the planes, we've looked after the planes, we've dealt with with receiving extra cargo. You moved that cargo, or some of it, not all of it. And what about you? Has this period, beneficial is a horrible word to use in this term. Have you seen development beyond what you would expect as a result of this period?
Absolutely. So going back to COVID, what obviously happened is overnight all the passenger airlines stopped. And it's very important to know that half of the air freight capacity in the world is transported in the belly of passenger aircrafts. So that capacity was gone like that overnight. And on the demand side, then there were all these masks, you said, the personal protection equipment, the vans, governance queuing up, at our doorstep, and then every airline's doorstep, begging for capacity. So it was a crazy situation. And as you said, everything came to a halt, but us logistics providers were continuing service. It became really clear that it's an essential service for every healthcare system to stay running, for every economy to feed people, you know, stay operational. So it were super busy days, but it also filled us with a lot of pride and purpose. So it was fantastic, you know, to bring vaccines in and out of the country, all that medical equipment, and then to keep the production companies running to a certain extent, and with that to secure the livelihood of the people. So it was a fantastic period. At the same time, we know what our governments were doing. They were pumping lots of money into the economy. We get the bill of those back then necessary actions today, but that also meant that e-commerce spend obviously was shooting through the roof. So that was another big demand factor, which René was also talking about. So Alibaba and other Chinese e-commerce companies establishing Budapest as a base. And then on top of that came the war. And what's very important to know about the war is that one of the biggest carriers bringing in air freight from China to Europe, or who used to do that, was Airbridge Cargo, which is a Russian company. And then due to sanctions and no flight rights, that company also overnight wasn't able to operate into Europe. So once the market started to recover from COVID, in terms of supply from the factory of the world, which used to be China, which is Asia right now, then Airbridge, a huge capacity factor, just overnight exited the market, which then again meant a huge run for capacity. So rates, air freight rates skyrocketed from, say, 2 euros, from 10 euros and plus. And now, and this is probably to your next question, but now we're in this sobering phase of slowing economy, and with that also slowing logistics markets, with lots of capacity available, passenger airplanes coming back with the belly capacity, and now it's now the trend is going backward.
Thank you for that, Adam. Adam, very quickly, you can't comment on COVID because you opened after COVID. But you have been operating throughout the war period. Do you think that has accelerated your business or held it back? Quick answer if you can, because I need to move it on.
Okay, quick answer. First of all, congratulations for René and his colleagues, because I know very well how much work they put into the developments, and I'm happy to see that in our small country there are such developments. And we can be also proud that we have developed something at the Ukrainian border of Hungary, which brought Hungary back to the world map of logistics. Back to your question, we built everything from zero as a greenfield development. And to answer your question, I wouldn't say that we are beneficiaries, because we had to recalculate many things. There were COVID, extreme increase of costs, and there are now there is a surrounding environment now, which is not supportive. But still, we were able to hire our people to start the operation, and we have many negotiations now, especially with Ukrainian companies. So I really hope that we will benefit from. Yeah.
And as I said, we're all aware of the situation, so we take the caveats with words like benefit. Two very important areas that I need us to cover, and I'm going to try and mash them up into one. We've talked about the past, we've talked about the present. The future is always of interest. I read last month that sail is beginning to make a comeback, and I do mean sail ships. They can't match cargo, large cargo, but because of everyone backing up at the ports, they can actually get into smaller ports, and that therefore becomes reactive in the sense that you can go back to the future to do something that we thought we'd left behind. And for years now, I've heard people talking about dirigibles, Zeppelins, for want of a better word. So where do you think we're going in terms of innovation? What will be the next great thing? Will you have Zeppelins taking off from Budapest? Will you be maintaining those Zeppelins? And also, perhaps more importantly, because we all deal in a regional context here, how does Hungary compare when we talk about innovations with particularly the region, but also we can take it a bit wider than that. So is Hungary well placed? Can it make more of its brain power? That we don't just have to innovate by building Zeppelins. We can do things in the cloud. We can help move things forward there. So we'll come back the other way this time, just to break it up a bit. We'll start with the Adams at the end. So Adam, you've just built a facility. You're still developing it. Where do you think technology is going to take you in the near future? And do you get an advantage from being where you are here in Hungary that you might not get elsewhere in this region?
Yes, so when we started the project, we decided to invest into the most advanced technologies which are available currently. As I mentioned, we have private 5G system within the terminal. We have so-called OCR gates at the public entry point and also the rail entry point of the terminal. OCR gates are making pictures from every single side of the trucks and trailers, locomotives and wagons, which is very important from the perspective of responsibility and liability. We also have a development with the Hungarian startup company, which means that we have rendered the whole terminal into a 3D visualization system. We have a digital twin of our terminal. And you can follow up the activity in a real-time solution like in a video game, which has a value-added service. For example, we will able to show to our clients where are their containers, what is the content and everything. And as I mentioned, besides the terminal, we have a future perspective with a huge surrounding development, because our first expectation was that the terminal will provide service for the surrounding industrial zone, manufacturing facilities, factories. Currently, we are a little bit far from it, but there are many negotiations in this regard. So, of course, these technologies are very expensive, but as we see from the feedbacks of our colleagues, they are really interested in our solutions, and we will benefit. We are benefiting already from these options. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Adam, Zeppelins, anytime soon?
Yeah, then let me prick green logistics, because you implied on that. It's a huge topic for us. So we were the first logistics provider pioneering that topic, and in 2017 we were the first one to say that by 2050 we will become fully carbon neutral. Now all of you think 2050, what a marketing gag, 30 years away, you know, who the hell knows what's going to happen up to then. But we're really working on it hard, investing 7 billion euros by 2030. Just to give you examples, 60% of our pickup and delivery fleet will be fully electric by 2030. In Hungary, already 25% of our pickup and delivery fleet is fully electric. We will offer products to our customers, which are green products, so CO2 neutral products, because obviously just for fun, we cannot make all these investments, but we need your support and your buy-in into delivering on these targets. All of our new facilities since 2021 has been carbon neutral, as you know, René. And then the big topic in logistics is aviation. So for my division, 90% of our CO2 emissions is done through aviation. And the technology cycles, as Thoralf will be able to say in aviation, aren't that quick. So we are investing into electric aircraft, which are hitting the skies in 2 years, but their payloads will be small, so we can use them domestically for smaller loads, etc. So until we get electric aircraft and Zeppelins and all that fun stuff I'm sure Thoralf is going to talk about, we are working with sustainable aviation fuels. They are fuels which aren't from fossil fuels, but right now from bio waste. So you can mix them with kerosene, and over the life cycle, their life cycle, the sustainable aviation fuels have observed a lot of CO2 because they are out of sunflower oil. So the sunflower oil, as an example, has absorbed a lot of CO2, and now we are burning them in our aircraft. When you look at the global sustainable aviation fuel market globally, it's very tiny right now. But last year, DHL has purchased 21% of all sustainable aviation fuel available in the market. This year, it's going to be a similar value. It's very expensive in the moment, at the moment, but it's a very important transition technology to reduce our car CO2 emissions, and then obviously your CO2 emissions if you're using us, until then the big manufacturers come up with a really clean air freight technology.
What about, I assume one of the reasons it's expensive is that there's not a lot of it. Are you able to source everything you need? And do you see signs that there is more coming on stream, so that the price comes down and hopefully the price point for us comes down?
So at the moment, this 21% of the world market of sustainable aviation fuels accounts for 1% of our fuel consumption. So it's a tiny market starting out right now. But by 2030, we have pledged to have 30% sustainable aviation fuel in our networks. And all these technologies are rapidly ramping up. They are very expensive, though. And we will need, we are taking a big upfront investment. It's billions. But obviously, we will need then our customers, like Thoralf and many others here in the room, to then share that obligation for our globe, and also buy those fuels or co-finance those fuels.
Share the pain. René, you obviously have an interest in sustainable fuels as well, in everything that you do. But and I do know that one of the things that Chris has pushed through, Chris Dinsdale, your CEO, has pushed through is innovations at the airport in terms of digitizing as much as possible and speeding up the process. So how do you see that developing, and how does it compare regionally? Are you able to do things at Budapest Airport that are setting trends?
Yes, indeed. Chris is really, how can I say, a pusher, a driver in this respect. Also establishing the Green Airport Partner Program, where we have also DHL and Lufthansa Technik partner in this Green Airport Program. Sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, yes, this is also our duty as Budapest Airport to provide the necessary infrastructure for the provision of SAF to the airlines. In terms of cargo, more precise, to answer your question, yes, we are following the trend. There's a trend in Europe how to make cargo more digital. For example, in front of the cargo warehouse, you have long queues, trucks, waiting times. They don't know where to go, which truck dock, etc. All these things you can do with digital. You can organize this in a much better way. Means at the end of the day, you have less waiting times, less CO2 emission, certainly, savings. And this is a program we have established a year ago. We are doing this together with various European airports. It's also a European Union funded, so-called Stargate project. And this is a project we want to roll out in the course of next year, making cargo at Budapest Airport more digital, more lean, faster.
Stargate worries me because it was a sci-fi program, and it was quite sinister as well. But good luck with that. Zeppelins. Someone's got to get me a Zeppelin soon. How do you see developments and innovations from your part, Thoralf?
I don't want to repeat. I think the things which have been said. But I completely agree that there are these two trends. That's I would say green logistics, and the other trend, digitization. And maybe just to add something to the digitization is really integration of all these stakeholders in logistics, because logistics is, I would say, the most heterogenic industry what we are having and working on the integration, I think, from the whole chain, from the supplier to the customer. There's still so many breaks in it and interfaces, which are, I would say, I call them always the biological interfaces. So that's the human beings which are printing or maybe transferring data from one system to the other. And we should not forget, one important role is also the state in there with the public stakeholders like customs and so on and so on. And that's really important. I think that the industry and the state together really try to integrate and digitalize as much as they can. So creating really an ecosystem. And I'm a little bit far off, not so deep as you maybe where's Hungary really standing there. So how good we are and that the industry and the state together really create an ecosystem which makes a competitive advantage in the end in comparison to the other countries which are around us. So I think that there we can win. And then when I look to the big logistics, I would say, core cities or something like, for example, Frankfurt Airport. So they are running such initiatives where they are saying, hey, we are creating really an ecosystem where we have all stakeholders in, and that's, I think, one important thing where I would say there's still a lot of potential.
Thank you. Adam, very quickly, how well placed is Hungary in terms of innovation? Because you are your global company. So I hope that perhaps you have some insight. Is Hungary just following a trend that everyone else is? Is there anything that we're doing here in Hungary that's different from elsewhere?
If I look at the economy, then it's very clear that Hungary is heavily weighted towards industrial companies. We all know that automotive has a huge footstep here. And what we are really trying to enable and to nurture are digital industries. So if you look around the region and think about e-commerce as an example, which is a digital industry, and we can say that all the big e-commerce brands we are buying from in Hungary, be it Alza, be it Kifli, who is also Czech with Rocklik, be it eMag, who is a strategic company in Hungary declared by the government, but it's a Romanian company, etc., etc. So it's really hard to find a strong Hungarian player in e-commerce. And yes, we are basically ruled by other national champions from within the Central European cluster. So what we do as DHL, we put a special emphasis on SMEs, supporting their ability to export, and then also special ability on e-commerce, also together with an association we have founded, together with Google and MasterCard and others, the digital e-commerce, the Digital Commerce Association, because we do want to see in Hungary more modern and digital industries thriving, most importantly e-commerce, and with that balance the composition of the economy more from this automotive industrial production to digital services and IT heavy industries. So this would be my answer. Of course, there are a lot of great things going on in Hungary, but if I look at the automotive industry, there is a question mark in many minds whether that's really the industry of the future or whether that's a maturing industry. And that's a challenge we are willing to support here as participants of the Hungarian economy.
Thank you for that, Adam. Ladies and gentlemen, we're kind of approaching the end of our hour. We do like to try and involve you guys because you've got lots of intelligent, smart questions, far more than me probably. So is there anything from the floor? Any questions for our panel from the floor? Sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So my question, I have a very simple question. What's your business case for your huge investment in the eastern part of Hungary. So what's your strategy? What's your strategy to create, to make profit? Simple.
Thank you for the question. In current situation, speaking about strategy, we were planning on the long term, at least with 10 years, return of invest with our project. Of course, there was a high risk when we started, and everything has changed meanwhile. We really hope that somehow the situation will be a little bit consolidated, and everybody will be back to focus onto the container transportation, because we believe that this is the future. Currently, the rail and also the trucking logistics is extremely cost sensitive, as I see from the feedback of the customers. So yeah, we would like to get back to containerized cargo wherever it's possible, and from the feedback of the clients, we see that it will happen in the close future.
Do you have a time frame on that, Adam?
Time frame immediately, hopefully, but yeah, let's see in the next 12 months. Hopefully, there will be changes.
Thank you. Barbara, you wanted to say something, I think, or ask something.
Yeah, I was wondering how many more companies could be connected to rail in Hungary, because when I do visits around the country, then sometimes I see, rail tracks, but they are covered by green, so meaning they haven't been in use for a long time. Where do you see the potential there?
Sorry, I am not sure that I got your question. So Hungary is basically a transit country from the perspective of railway. The market is lacking of equipment. Actually, everything is missing from the market: locomotives, wagons, human resources. Fortunately, we have everything. So it seems that we already have cooperation agreements with the leading international rail operator companies. Our intermodal terminal is connected with all of the big ports of Europe. I personally visited all of them, and we had negotiations. So yeah, because of these connections, I really see the future of Hungary as a transit country.
Maybe I can add something. Because I'm always getting the question, how about having a rail track at the airport? And when my answer
already discussed about this.
Yeah, exactly. But my answer is always, look, the air cargo and the rail cargo is different. So it's a different type of, let's say, cargo, different type of volumes, different type of, let's say, in terms of let's say, value. So it's a different game. So therefore, there's no real sense to establish, let's say, a rail track, or let's say a rail container terminal somewhere close to the airport, because again, it's a different business.
Sorry, just maybe it is an answer to a question that somehow the rail can be connected currently only with rail, truck, and shipping industry. Somehow the aircraft is not really working together with the rail, as I see now.
Ádám Meszaros, DHL, can we make more use of rail in this country?
I don't think so. So rail, I mean, obviously from a green perspective, it's very attractive, and we all want to leverage that infrastructure, but the infrastructure is ultra thin compared to what's happening on roads and what's happening on other modes. China rail now is a different topic. It's still, I mean, compared to the whole mess of logistics, it's small, but it's growing, and it's a dedicated infrastructure more or less for those trains. But if you think about Germany with passenger trains very densely commuting, and then all the cargo, so you couldn't even put 1% of road freight on tracks. It wouldn't be possible. But what's a very good technology, and I think the most likely one, is, and in Sweden there is a project on this, to electrify highways with battery-driven trucks. And that would mean that on the highway, the trucks would have energy to drive. It could also happen autonomously pretty easily by now. And then for those tracks off the highway, first and last mile, that's where they would use their batteries, which they have charged on the highway. So if we think about groundbreaking infrastructure to modernize road networks, probably electrifying is number one. And then there is hydrogen, but a bit further off. And then just battery-driven and trucks, it's very, very difficult to put all that energy they would need into batteries for longer distances at the moment.
Which brings us back to something you were saying about using electric aircraft. They can only be small aircraft today.
Exactly.
Yeah. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, ma'am. Excuse me.
Thank you very much. Camila Koschler from Lufthansa Cargo. And I would bring into the round very hot topic like HR. So we all suffered during the pandemic of layoffs. So my question would be, how do you see your position, either country-wise here or worldwide, if you have, whether your company is the hottest chick in the town, meaning all the people queuing in front of your door to be employed.
Thank you. Who wants to take that? Who's the hottest chick in town? René, it's you, obviously.
I think, Thoralf, you have the toughest job with looking for actually skilled technicians, right? So why don't you take it?
Yeah. If you would ask me what's the biggest challenge at the moment, next to all the challenges we know, inflation, energy, and so on, yeah, staff is the biggest challenge. And unfortunately, we don't have a queue in front of our hangar. So we really have to fight for every single hire. And that's what we see in the whole industry. And of course, you see now also when you have these crises, when you are stopping in the end, and especially what we have seen, we were lucky in the situation that we didn't do any layoffs here in Hungary, so we could keep our whole own personnel. We had to lay off our contractor workers, of course, to reduce the staff force. But we stopped also the training due to in the crisis, and we stopped the apprenticeship and so on to save the money and so on. And if you would ask me now, but it's always anyhow easy to look back and say, okay, maybe we should have decided differently. So if I look now, I would say, hey, it was maybe not the best decision to stop the training programs during the crisis. Huh? So, and because now we have to ramp them up again and so on, and we see that fight. And what we also see, unfortunately, in our business, that we were hit a little bit by this crisis, that it became more visible for the public that there is an opinion, oh, aviation is an unstable industry, because if with this crisis now, it was so hard and it was so visible that the whole system had stopped, that people are thinking, is it really a good chance to go into aviation? And we have to turn that now. That we are really I would say, restore the old image for aviation, but we have to work hard on that. That's definitely the biggest issue at the moment.
Thank you. René?
It's indeed, it's a valid point. People are simply afraid about the aviation business and maybe another crisis, another COVID second COVID coming. And then what happens again? When, I don't know, we're closing again our terminals. So this is people are afraid of. Let's say within our organization, Budapest Airport, we are, let's say, quite okay. Yes, there's a fluctuation, but in general, within the airport organization, we have people working for many, many years already at the airport, and they want to stay. So here we are quite okay. But in terms of our business partners, especially ground handlers, cargo, our cargo handling companies, they are suffering a lot, quite high fluctuation. For them, it's important to stay competitive. I mean, the thing is, we request the people to come to the airport early morning, 4 o'clock already. There's no really proper public transport to the airport. Salaries are under pressure. So things like this, and they need to compete then with other employers somewhere downtown and having a different, let's say, working hours starting from 8 o'clock, for example. So things like this are quite difficult. Or look in our terminal, our business partners like the duty-free operator, food and beverage operator, exactly the same. Here we are requesting them to come to the airport 4 o'clock in the morning when the first passenger arrives. Salaries are sometimes not really competitive. We are requesting from them to speak English on a, let's say, appropriate level. It's in certain cases it's really difficult. Yeah.
You in a sense, you make it harder for yourself. Adam, how are you doing with finding the people you need in this country?
It is always a question. We have presence in Budapest and also at the Ukrainian border in Fenyas-Litka, which is a small town, and our terminal is surrounded by a small group of towns which are in a good shape actually. And my experience is quite positive. We have a structure and an efficiency, which means that we do not really need too many people. We are currently 140, which is actually more than enough to operate the whole project, but we will have more and more people. So currently my experience is positive. So human resources are available.
Thank you. And other, Adam, I'm guessing DHL has, no disrespect, but DHL has more than 140. So do you have big holes that you're struggling to fill? Is that holding business back?
No, it's not holding business back. We make sure it's not holding business back, but it's a struggle, yeah. There are these tendencies when new investors are coming, they simply put a 50% premium on top of, say, forklift driver's wage because they really need them. And there is obviously a spiral. To me, the interesting question is what's going to happen. Let's face it, the economic climate is slowing. And at the moment, I have the impression that many are holding on to staff because they know that if the economic engine is again jumping on, then basically they will need those people. And in a current economic environment, it will be really, really difficult to hire them. So a retain over hire strategy has been the strategy of most players in the market because it's much more realistic. But the question is, of course, how the economy is going to evolve, and the question is how long this strategy is going to prevail. So right now, I feel there might be a moment of truth. It's a known fact companies have been imposing hiring freezes. They have been very, very careful with spending if they are in manufacturing and in many other areas of the business right now. So yeah, it might actually change quicker than we would expect.
And one assumes that digitizing what you can helps free up resources for elsewhere. So it becomes a driver. You must digitize to make sure that you can operate as efficiently as possible.
Absolutely. And even in traditional industries like ours, today we don't expect shipments without electronic shipping documentation, as an example, being submitted beforehand. And that's a trend the whole industry is going into. That means you need, much less people doing customs work, as an example. And let us remember that economic crises were the times when new ideas were often found, and when new trends like digitalization was accelerated, also just out of the sheer need of businesses. So I think, yeah, we will see a lot of that in the upcoming months. But then who knows, maybe like, last year with the war or 2 years before with COVID, things are just going to change overnight. And that's where we again will have to be agile, and we will be then, everything will be forgotten about the current sentiment.
None of us sadly do have those crystal balls. So agility is the answer. We're probably about at the stage where we need to wrap this up. But is there one more question from the floor, perhaps? Oh, Barbara's coming back again. Hang on one second.
I'm so sorry, just expressing my happiness about having the logistics topic today. I'm curious about East-West Gate. Is it part of the Silk Road project? Is there any Chinese investment involved? I'm just curious about the connections.
Thank you for the questions. Good question. Yeah, let's say it's on the new Silk Road, geographically and physically, but it's not related to any political definitions. It's owned by fully but private Hungarian private persons, private investment, Hungarian investment. So no Chinese investment in it at all.
But in terms of business, are you expecting to be a recipient of all those goods coming along the road?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are Chinese investments which are planned around our project because, as I mentioned, we have a almost 500 hectares development plan. And yeah, there are some plans from the Chinese side.
Unless anyone's got an absolute... Oh, René, do you want to say?
Yeah, go on. But we have different ways of transport. So with Air Silk Road, I mean, also myself, I was several times in China to present Budapest Airport, capabilities of Budapest Airport as being or becoming part of the Air Silk Road. So therefore, each and every aircraft coming from Asia, from China, flying to Budapest is for me one small piece of the Air Silk Road and continues then to Europe.
Thank you, René. And it's an important reminder that you know, this whole business does not stand on one leg, it's at least 4 legs, which is very stable. So unless there's any really burning last question from the floor, I'm going to assume that we should probably wrap it up there. It's been a fascinating conversation, gentlemen. Thank you for sharing your expertise and your thoughts with us. I guess if I'm going to try and summarize this, digitization is going to be really important. Finding newer, greener means of doing almost anything and everything is going to be important, but we're still going to need to physically move things from A to B. That's what logistics is all about. And perhaps we need to do things like look at more infrastructure, more railway connections. We can't do much about seaports from here, but and the one thing that we didn't talk about was river cargo, but that's, I'm assuming, a tiny percentage of the business. So, Adam, good luck finding more biofuels for your aircraft. René, good luck in turning Budapest into Heathrow, as you've got the land for it. Thoralf, I look forward to coming to see you working on a Zeppelin. And Adam, good luck with the developing your business, and I hope things settle down, particularly in your neighbourhood, and make life easier for everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Please show your appreciation for our panel. Thank you.